I open this public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Defence Subcommittee in relation to its inquiry into Department of Defence Annual Report 2023-24. This hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of the proceedings will be published on the committee's website. I now welcome the Department of Defence to give evidence today. For the Hansard record, would you please state your names and the capacity in which you appear before the Defence Committee?
Bernard Phillip, First Assistant Secretary, International Policy.
Good afternoon, Major General Gregory Novak, Commander, Space Command.
Good afternoon, Major General Matt Pearce. I'm the head of our Force Design team.
Good afternoon, Paul Robards, the Chief Data Integration Officer for Defence.
Claire Murphy, Assistant Secretary, Advanced Strategic Capabilities Accelerator.
Thank you very much. Just to remind witnesses that this hearing is a legal proceeding of the Parliament. The giving of false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as a contempt of Parliament. The evidence given today will be recorded by Hansard and attracts parliamentary privilege. I now invite you to make an opening statement before we proceed to discussion.
Thanks, Chair. Is your plan to go through these terms of reference, number 4, then 5, then 6?
Well, I'm really in the way that it works is I'm really in the hands of the committee, and that they may jump around, but of course that would be a nice and orderly way to proceed.
Sure.
So we'll pick up from your opening statement the way in which you'd like to, advance, and we can take our cues from that. And before you commence, can I just thank HQ Jock for the hospitality that the committee received this morning. Members of the committee were able to attend and observe in situ the coordinating hub for Australia's defence capability, and that is very educative for all of us. We were also given great access to information from people who are on site, who have sent you as their representatives to answer questions for this committee, and we appreciate your evidence on the public record. That makes a very big difference for us to be able to bring the Australian people into this conversation, which is our job as representatives. So let's hear from you in the way in which you want to proceed, and then we'll follow on from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So I've prepared a short 2-minute statement on terms of reference number 4. I also have a statement on terms of reference number 5. Okay. And I think Mr Phillip might be prepared to talk to terms of reference number 6.
We should only do all of those in one go, back to back.
And then
open to questions.
And then we can open to questions, and that way we've got the shape and form of where you think we're going to head. That's great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Chair, committee members, thanks for the opportunity to address the committee on the integration of uncrewed and autonomous systems in our joint force. The 2024 National Defence Strategy identifies trusted autonomy as a key priority for defence innovation. This reflects the growing importance of asymmetric capabilities in safeguarding Australia's strategic interests. Defence is investing significantly in uncrewed and autonomous systems across all domains, across air, land and maritime domain, to enhance the reach, resilience and lethality of the Australian Defence Force. And I'll just give you some examples. In the air domain, platforms such as the MQ-28 Ghostbat and MQ-4 Triton are being developed and introduced to augment crewed capabilities. The Ghostbat, developed in partnership with Boeing Defence Australia, has demonstrated collaborative combat behaviours, including simultaneous control of multiple aircraft and integration with our crewed platforms such as the E-7 Wedge Tail. These systems are not simply remotely piloted, they are designed to operate autonomously, sharing sensor data and executing missions as part of a networked force. On land, Defence is developing tactical drones such as the Integrator, Black Hornet and Corvox, which support surveillance, reconnaissance and force protection. These platforms are being trialled through Army's Combat Experimentation Group and exercises like Talisman Sabre 25. In the maritime domain, the Ghost Shark extra-large autonomous underwater vehicle represents sovereign capability developed by Anduril Australia. Designed for long-range stealth operations, Ghost Shark can be launched from shore or sea and is capable of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance and strike missions. It's modular, scalable and supported by over 40 Australian companies in its supply chain. Defence is also investing in counter-drone technologies to protect our forces and infrastructure. These include detection and neutralisation systems that interfere with drone control mechanisms. Through Land 156, Defence is partnering with Leidos Australia to integrate counter-drone capabilities, supported by a $1.3 billion investment over the decade. Recent contracts have enabled rapid acquisition and continuous modernisation to keep pace with evolving threats. All of these capabilities are developed and deployed in accordance with Australia's domestic and international legal obligations. Defence is committed to the responsible use of AI-enabled technologies, guided by a forthcoming internal policy and informed by DFAT-led engagements in multinational forums, including the United Nations discussion on lethal autonomous weapon systems. In summary, Defence is building a joint force that leverages uncrewed and autonomous systems to deliver strategic advantage, enhancing capability, resilience and reach, while upholding our legal obligations, ethical responsibilities and commitment to sovereign capability development. I welcome your question on this topic and note that I'm joined today by Dr Claire Murphy to my left, who's from our Advanced Strategic Capabilities Accelerator team, known as ASCA. Dr Murphy can provide further insight into the ASCA missions and innovation challenges currently underway to accelerate development of uncrewed and autonomous systems to meet Defence's evolving needs. Chair, if you're happy, I'll go on to term of reference number 5, which is about the integrated force.
That would be wonderful, thank you.
The Australian Defence Force is undergoing a generational shift from a balanced force to a focused force, which is optimised for operations in our immediate region. A balanced force refers to a military structure that maintains a broad range of capabilities across all domains, air, land, sea, space and cyber, without prioritising any particular area. An integrated force is the model outlined in the 2024 National Defence Strategy. It prioritises capabilities that are most relevant to Australia's strategic environment, particularly in our immediate region, and ensures those capabilities are connected across domains. The ADF's transformation to an integrated and focused force is being delivered across 3 key areas: force posture, capability and force structure, and I'll address each of those in turn. So from a force posture point of view, we're reforming our posture to ensure the ADF can project and sustain operations across Australia's northern approaches and into the Indo-Pacific region. Over $3.9 billion has been committed to upgrade our northern bases, including support for Apache helicopter basing out of RAF Base Townsville. Infrastructure upgrades are also underway at naval bases and shipyards, including a strategic partnership with Austral at Henderson Shipyard. These investments enhance our readiness, responsiveness and strategic reach. From a capability point of view, Defence is delivering with sharper emphasis on long-range strike, persistent surveillance, resilient logistics and integrated multi-domain operations. Key milestones include the acquisition of Tomahawk cruise missiles, naval strike missiles and high-mobility artillery rocket systems, known as HIMARS. Delivery of advanced platforms such as the MQ-4C Triton, the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter and the UH-60 Black Hawk. We've also established a guided weapons and explosive ordnance enterprise with over $4.1 billion committed to sovereign missile manufacturing, and launched the Advanced Strategic Capabilities Accelerator, ASCA, with $3.4 billion invested to fast-track technologies like autonomous systems, quantum and direct energy. These efforts are supported by procurement and budget reforms to accelerate delivery and strengthen sovereign industrial capacity. Finally, from a force structure point of view, transformation is not just about new kit, it's about changing how we think, plan and operate. Defence is restructuring several of Army's units and formations to reflect revised force structure requirements, particularly for long-range strike and littoral manoeuvre. We've also released our Defence Workforce Plan, which outlines how we'll grow and adapt our workforce to future needs. This includes expanded recruitment pathways, improved support for families, and enhanced training and delivery of skills for the National Defence Strategy priorities. In short, the ADF is not just planning for change, we're delivering it, and the NDS 24 has provided us clear direction and urgency to ensure the ADF is ready to meet the challenges of our strategic environment. Chair, I might hand to Mr Phillip to address the third terms of reference.
Thank you, Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to speak with you today. Australia's international defence cooperation is operating at a scale and tempo that reflects the strategic reality we face, where competition, military, economic, technological and diplomatic, is intensifying across every domain. The 2024 National Defence Strategy made clear that strategic competition, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, is the defining feature of our security environment. That assessment has only sharpened over the past year. China's growing strategic weight and assertiveness continue to shape the regional order. Defence maintains open lines of dialogue with the People's Liberation Army, including through high-level meetings and engagement in multilateral fora. Our engagement is clear-eyed and consistent, focused on transparency, risk reduction and regional stability. Defence's international engagement is calibrated to support regional stability, building partnerships, enhancing interoperability and strengthening deterrence. Our alliance with the United States remains foundational to our defence and strategic interests. The 2024 AUSMIN meeting advanced key priorities, including force posture initiatives. The Trump administration reaffirmed the importance of the alliance, most recently during the Prime Minister's visit to Washington, and we continue to work closely with US counterparts to deliver tangible capability outcomes, including through AUKUS. Japan remains an indispensable partner. The Reciprocal Access Agreement has underpinned more than 40 joint activities since it entered into force in August 2023, and trilateral cooperation with the US has continued to grow. With India, we have expanded maritime domain awareness cooperation, strengthened defence science and industry cooperation, and deepened our engagement through Exercise Malabar. The recent visit to Australia by India's Defence Minister, the first in 12 years, has underscored the ambition in our defence relationship. In the Northeast Indian Ocean, we have elevated cooperation with Sri Lanka and Maldives, gifting sovereign capabilities and establishing annual defence policy talks. In the Pacific, we have deepened our security partnerships, through which we build capability, promote interoperability, and enable Pacific-led responses to Pacific security challenges. We continue to invest in regional maritime security through our 30-year commitment to the Pacific Maritime Security Program. The Pacific Response Group is operational and has deployed to support regional contingencies. We've elevated our relationship with Papua New Guinea through agreement to a mutual defence treaty. And in the Solomon Islands, we continue to support sovereign policing capability, including through the design of a new police academy. In Southeast Asia, we have deepened cooperation through treaty-level agreements, expanded interoperability, preparedness and training cooperation, and we've delivered major activities such as Indo-Pacific Endeavour and exercises such as Alon in the Philippines and Keris Woomera in Indonesia. Our engagement with ASEAN remains central to our efforts. The conduct of several regional presence deployments by the ADF has also contributed to our presence and posture in the Indo-Pacific. These relationships and activities are integral to our broader Indo-Pacific strategy and reflect our commitment to a stable and sovereign region. Globally, we remain engaged with NATO, the UK, Canada, France and other partners. Our cooperation continues to grow through strategic dialogues, science, technology and industry cooperation and exercises. We continue to support Ukraine in the face of Russia's illegal and immoral invasion, with over $1.3 billion committed in military support, as well as training under Operation Kudu, and most recently the second deployment of an E-7 aircraft to Europe. Defence remains engaged in multinational efforts to support Ukraine's sovereignty and resilience. Defence has continued to step up our international engagement to reinforce Australia's credibility as a regional and global security partner. Our posture is forward-leaning, our partnerships are deepening, and our strategy is clear: to shape, deter and respond in a region of intensifying strategic competition. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phillip. I can advise those who might be listening that in addition to the witnesses who are here and have named themselves, I'm Deborah O'Neill, Senator for New South Wales Chair. I'm joined by my colleagues. I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Thank you. I'm Susan Templeman, the member for Macquarie.
Also in the room with me,
Madonna Jarrett, member for Brisbane.
and I believe we have online Ms. Clutterham. Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Excellent. Okay. If we move to questions, I just want to clarify a couple of the comments that you've made in your opening statements. If I could go first to you, Major General Pearce, with regard to terms of reference number 4. I think Australians are very interested in technology. I know we have a very quick take-up of new technologies, and I know that Australians are very proud of our force, and they would be delighted to think that we are getting the capabilities we need in terms of autonomous weaponry that we know is being deployed around the world. So I just want to get on the record, what's the scale of the investment in uncrewed and autonomous systems? How much are we expending currently? What are the challenges in getting the materials that we need, and how does that integrate with industry? If I can just open with that.
Sure, thanks, Chair. So I might start and then others might contribute as well. So the declared investment from the government in the Integrated Investment Program is in a funding bracket of $10.6 to $13.9 billion over the decade. The true number lies within that bracket, but obviously there's some sensitivities about declaring our exact investment to potential adversaries. Part of the approach is to firstly identify what our capability requirements are that come from the strategic direction the government has given us, and then through our ASCA team be able to line up where there might be opportunities within industry to be able to deliver against those strategic requirements. And so they've got a different process from our normal capability acquisition process to take advantage of the temporal nature of technology, if that makes sense, to be able to bring these capabilities into service quicker, to be able to trial them, to be able to confirm that they're fit for purpose, that they meet our requirements, and then be able to integrate them into our force. And so what I covered was a number of examples where we've successfully done that across each of the domains, but I might ask Dr Murphy to perhaps speak about some of the ASCA initiatives as well.
Just before you go ahead, in your commentary at the beginning of addressing terms of reference number 5, which is one that the committee has had struggled to get information to date on the integrated force, sure. You articulated the reality of a very significant shift that I don't know that the Australian people are really quite aware of yet. And I think that this comes into play when we're talking about the autonomous systems and uncrewed systems. So if I could just put on the public record in a common parlance, the world's changed a bit. We used to have what we called a balanced force. And the government's taken advice, put together a strategy and said, no, we've got to move a little further forward than that. And so the posture has shifted from balanced to now integrated. Yep. Which is why this integrated word's a bit of a problem for us, because it seems to mean very different things under each of the terms of reference that we're looking at. So the integrated part has seen a shift from all of the 5 different areas doing their own kind of organisation and acquisition of whatever they need, whether it's from machinery to kit of all different kinds to do their job. We've shifted to a different model now where there's much more collaboration by all of the forces together, and there's decision-making that is allowing a different kind of acquisition of materials that's relevant for this new posture, this integrated posture which is responding to our geostrategic reality. So if that's the frame, have I got that right?
Yes, Chair, and I can give some expansion on what it means to us internally to Defence, if that would be helpful.
That would be, I think, at this point of time. Thank you.
Sure.
That's a switch. It's a significant one. What does it mean? And that's going to help us do our work as well, I think, if we understand it very well.
So a balanced force was really designed to be able to make contributions to security efforts, perhaps wherever they were required around the globe, usually integrating with our major alliance partner, the US. And so think about examples from the Middle East in recent times. That wasn't the ADF deploying integrated teams of Army, Navy and Air Force. That was the ADF deploying an Army team to Afghanistan, a Navy team to the Persian Gulf and an Air Force team to the Middle East area of operations. So deploying for a security effect but not deploying together as an integrated force. The idea of an integrated force really comes from we have some wonderful capabilities, but any group is stronger and more effective when we work together. So Army, Navy and Air Force have got some great capabilities individually, but when we orchestrate them together, coordinate them together, we're more effective. When we add space and cyber capabilities to that, we're more effective again. And the National Defence Strategy groups that up in a term called National Defence, where we seek to orchestrate all effects of national power to be able to achieve, security and care for Australia's national interests.
That's a really helpful way of helping, I think, people understand what's changed. Can I just ask you to maybe include, if you can, in that description where the two other pillars that are important, two other elements, the public service and the contractors, fit into that model, because that's part of the operational capacity. Even though people think about Army, Air Force and Navy, now we've had to add in space because technology's changed, our world's changed. We also had to add in cyber. Everybody knows what that could mean. It could be an easy way to get your banking done, but also a chance for somebody to come and scam you. So we've got all those going. But I don't think in the public place the role of the public service and the role of contractors is at all understood in terms of this further development and further integration. So if you could explain that as well, that would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. I might give it a go, or do you want to lead off?
I was just going to say, Senator, I mean, in defence we take an approach called One Defence, which reflects the intention on the part of the defence organisation to be an integrated organisation that supports the integrated Australian Defence Force. That involves different levels of mutual support. So, for example, certainly on the Australian Public Service side, across the wide range of functions that public servants undertake in defence, in many ways they are directly supporting that integrated force. To take, in my case as a public servant, it might be negotiating international agreements that provide exercising and training opportunities for the integrated force, or enhance the access of the Australian Defence Force in our region, obviously across different service providers in the Australian Public Service. That is very much focused on, and we are directed as public servants to be always thinking about how we can support the integrated force, particularly when it deploys on operations.
And that's a very sound answer, but can I ask you to sort of put it in terms that, somebody who doesn't even know what the public service is, well, and I can tell you I was one of those growing up. I really didn't understand at all what it was. So there's very different understandings. What are the people who the Australian taxpayer are paying for to serve the public, we have increased in number since coming to government? What are they doing that's vitally connected with what the Defence Force is? Who are they?
Senator, it's a really wide range of categories as public servants in the defence organisation. That might involve public servants who are responsible for maintaining and upgrading our ICT capabilities that will directly support the integrated force. It might mean the many public servants and also contractors who support our defence estate, the ability of the Australian Defence Force to operate, live and train in our different bases and facilities around the country. It might involve lawyers who are providing legal advice on a wide range of issues to do with defence, including lawyers who provide advice to the Australian Defence Force when it deploys on operations. So I think in order for Australia to be able to field an integrated force of the kind that General Pearce has outlined, it really does rely on a wide range of inputs from public servants and different skill sets and backgrounds. And those public servants, I think, live across different locations in all states and territories in Australia, and some of them are posted overseas in direct support of defence outcomes as well.
And if they were overseas, they could be working with our ambassadors who are around the globe, or if they're in the trade area, they might be part of our Austrade communications, which helps us build connections in country. Or you've described people who might need to drive a truck to move things around, who might be contracted. Builders who are building, perhaps in Ms Jarrett's area, that there might be some builders from your particular seat that are part of further development for things. So this is, I guess I'm trying to labour the point that there is a connection into the community as well as into government representatives, as well as Army, Air Force, Navy, Space and Cyber. And this is one defence. Like, we're all in this together in a range of ways. Okay.
Chair, would you mind?
Please.
I might be able to add
Major
some
General
context to this. So Space Command is still a relatively new command. We're just on 3 years old, so we are in a establish and grow phase. And the one defence piece, the other term we'll use is the total workforce approach. So within Space Command, we have ADF members from all 3 services who make up our uniform component. We have an Australian public servant element that is integrated into the headquarters with roles that range from finance, business management, facilities management, physical security, administrative coordination of correspondence secretariat type roles. But increasingly as well, I think there is a growing opportunity for us to help other parts of the department bolster the technical part of our public service workforce, and we have 2 public servant positions in the command which are recently established, which fit that bill. The specifics I won't go into in this forum, but we have technical public servants as well. And then because the work that Space is involved in moves so quickly, and the need to tie into capability priorities and operational effects, it can move so fast. There are still niche opportunity or niche requirements, I think, where the skill sets and technologies and expertise we need are available most readily through commercial contract partners. So we have contracted industry partners on the floor as well. Now the numbers will vary, and I think the point for Space Command is we don't recruit ADF into the space domain. We recruit into the services, and then the services fill joint billets within Space Command. So that ADF piece we are cultivating through our relationship with the services and our training. But the APS and the contracted workforce are fundamental to what we do. At this early stage of our domain's establishment and our command's establishment, we wouldn't be able to take forward what we are without all 3 of those legs of human capability contributing to what we do.
Thank you. That's great to get that on the record. And it ties in with, you've got a new entity really that you're standing up, and you've got to bring in these skills. One of the new things is the autonomy in the way in which we're able to deploy uncrewed and autonomous systems to do what other entities around the world, other countries, other sovereign states are doing around the world. So as you're building up and responding in real time to that reality, this procurement dimension for autonomous and uncrewed systems is also a very important thing that's different from, and I think you said one sentence, but this is why I'm sort of trying to fill it out. The normal procurement models were very established when it was a balanced force. We are at an inflection point where that's changed, and the governments, through this National Defence Strategy has enabled a new model of procurement that's much quicker, because that is what our geostrategic moment requires. So that brings us back to where we jumped off for the autonomous and uncrewed part. And I think, Dr. Murphy, you're going to fill out so that Australians can understand what we've got, why we need it, why we're spending this money, and what we need to do to keep going forward effectively. If you could answer that, that would be great.
Sure, happy to. If I could just add to the conversation around the APS workforce, I just want to emphasise the science and technology elements within Defence. So we have our Defence Science and Technology group who have deep expertise in technologies such as AI, uncrewed systems, quantum. They're a key support to our ADF and provide deep technical experts that can give advice on not only the current technologies, but certainly the future technologies and opportunities that might be presented there. And I'll move now to specifically on ASCA. So ASCA's the Advanced Strategic Capabilities Accelerator. ASCA was established, just some background, ASCA was established on the 1st of July in 2023 to accelerate the development and transition of asymmetric capabilities to the Australian Defence Force through innovation in order to meet defence priority needs. I just want to emphasise a couple of points in that. Accelerate. We've heard already the strategic environment that we're existing and the urgency to really address the emerging threats, not only emerging geostrategic threats, but the acceleration of technologies that we're all witnessing, both in defence and certainly in the civilian space as well. The point I also want to emphasise is ASCA is here to meet defence priority needs. So we will not conduct any activity in ASCA unless it meets an operationally priority for our ADF. We get our direction from the Vice Chief of Defence Force, who is the Joint Force Authority, and we work with capability managers across the domains, air, land, maritime, space, cyber, as well as delivery managers, the likes of Capability and Acquisition Group, Guided Weapons, Explosive Ordnance, and the Naval Shipbuilding Sustainment Group, to ensure that the capabilities that we deliver are operationally relevant, they're employable, they're affordable, and they are sustainable. So I just wanted to make those points. Critical to ASCA's ability to operate quickly and develop and deliver these priority capabilities is, of course, our partnership with Australian industry and research organisations, along with our allies and partners, including our AUKUS partners. To date, ASCA has launched 5 missions under our flagship program, executed over 100 contracts worth just shy of $250 million. And as Major General Pearce mentioned, there is an investment of up to $3.8 billion over the next decade to deliver those capabilities that will meet Defence's most pressing operational needs. ASCA is playing a critical role in Defence's efforts to fast-track the delivery of uncrewed and autonomous systems. And I just want to highlight a few examples, and I can go into details if required. So under Mission Talent Strike, ASCA is developing low-cost, sovereign, medium-range, uncrewed, aerial precision loitering munitions. And recently, on the 10th of September...
What do normal people call those? Okay, so I appreciate how precise and how vitally important it is for you to be precise, and I'm happy for you to say that. But if you can do then a translation so that people, the Australian people who have not got these skills, can understand and appreciate it, what you're doing. This is the moment to get that on the record. So, is it a missile?
Yeah. Did any of my ADF colleagues want to jump in? Or
what was the mission you were talking about?
Talon Strike. So this is medium-range precision loitering munition. Essentially, yes, it's an autonomous aerial vehicle that has the capability to carry munitions. It has technologies that will essentially target and loiter until it's assured that is the target that it is designed to hit. And once that's assured, it will launch the munitions, the explosive ordnance to that target.
So if I can put it in these terms, because most of us experience the Defence Force through a movie, right?
Yes.
So if people have a vision, a missile is launched and there's a target and it's sent. This is kind of the next phase, like a super-duper brand-new missile where it's launched and it waits until it's absolutely certain that it's got the right spot and then it goes. So this is the new technology piece of autonomous deployment of missiles. They've got a new capability.
Correct. It's a autonomous aerial vehicle, or a drone, if you wish.
It's a smart missile.
Very smart.
Yeah, that helps. That helps me. Thank you. Yep.
Okay. So under that mission Talon Strike, which we signed contracts on the 10th of September this year, we've entered into an 18-month, $20.8 million contract with a company called Innovero. They're a Western Australian-based company. We talked a little bit earlier about procurement. We're proud of the fact that under this mission, it took us 4.5 months from approaching the market to actually signing a contract and getting the company geared up and working on our mission. So we're accelerating on a number of fronts, including how we can actually procure and get into contract with industry on these important projects.
Can I ask one question
Sure.
there and then go to Ms Templeman for a series? One of the pieces of feedback we are getting is from business and small business. They don't know, they are finding it difficult to see what it is that's being requested to participate in that. Now, that could be a national security reason that things aren't going out, or it could be just a timeliness or a transition point where a system is not sufficiently clear to participants from across the country who want to be a part of it. But I give you that feedback that this is something that we are hearing about, that this is not working as well, and that's procurement broadly, not particularly with regard to your job as ASCA, Advanced Strategic Capabilities Accelerator. But could you give me some comfort about where that is? Is it on track? Is it sorted? Are there plans for the future? So that we can give some sense to small and medium enterprises as well as large ones that they can be part of this investment in our development of capacities, which will have civilian application as well if we can lift the standards. So, Ms Murphy, Dr Murphy.
Look, just a couple of points on that. Firstly, I'll mention an entity within the Department of Defence, the Office of Defence Industry Support.
Yep.
They sit in CASG, the Capability Acquisition Sustainment Group. They're our essentially our front door, or the front door for industry into defence. So for ASCA, we have a very close relationship with Otis Business Advisors, and they are essentially our eyes and ears on the ground in terms of what companies are out there, what can they deliver, Equally, they are in conversations with ASCA around the demand signal and what are the types of priorities and capabilities that we are potentially looking to go out to market for. We understand that we need to move quickly, so it's really important, and through Otis, to give companies enough notice to actually gear up for the tender process itself. We appreciate that that takes time and resources for those companies. But what I would say, and we say this very publicly, is companies have got access to things like the National Defence Strategy. They have access to the Defence Industry Development Strategy. So the key strategic documents are guides for them, admittedly at a high level, but certainly for ASCA, as I've already mentioned, we are going after defence priorities. Our defence priorities are set in those strategic documents. But we appreciate that it can be a little bit opaque or hard for companies to get that demand signal. I will mention one activity that ASCA and parts of the other department are doing, are running classified briefings for industry, where we can actually have a level of conversation beyond what's in the public about what the threats are and therefore what are the capabilities that we need to address those threats. Feedback, certainly for the recent one that we've had in Adelaide, very positive and probably the most transparent discussion that many of those in the audience have had. And so that is another mechanism by which we communicate to industry what capabilities.
And have you had only one of those in Adelaide, or have there been more?
That was ASCA's first one,
yep.
But okay. I understand there's other parts of the department that run these as well.
Chair, following the
Major General Pearce,
following the release of the National Defence Strategy in April 2024, there were a number of classified briefings conducted for industry, and the plan would be to do the same following the next update due around April 2026.
Okay. So if I think of it like this, that Otis is a sort of a dating agency almost. There's, like this is where people can get together, so people need to connect in. And now this new strategy, it's very helpful that this is your first one, right? So we're getting in on the ground to see that you've had your first successful engagement with regard to uncrewed autonomous systems in Adelaide. And I expect other bits are being stood up at different points. I think I was actually at one that was early, that was about providing accommodation and new and innovative accommodation models, because clearly we're going to need people at different spaces with an orientation to the north as well. So it sounds like there's a staggered shift into a new paradigm that's happening at different pace for different entities, and that helps perhaps me. It certainly helps me understand some of the pressure that I'm getting, and also I think fine-tunes that it's not amorphous, that it's little parts moving forward at different rates, because this is a new posture with a new set of mechanisms that need to be stood up. Is that a fair way of thinking about it? Please, Major General Pearce.
Yes, Chair. And I'd say it's also sequenced with when the money becomes available in our forward work plan.
Yep.
So there's a challenge with briefing industry, getting them energised for a particular requirement, but that requirement not having funding for a couple of years. So there is a strategic brief provided immediately following the release of the National Defence Strategy and update, and then parts of the organisation brief in closer proximity to when they have funding for their particular initiatives or requirements.
Thank you. Very helpful. Ms Templeman.
Thank you, Chair. And what I might do, Chair, is just stick to the questions around terms of reference for I'll have some on the others, but I'm conscious if now that we've kind of going deep into it, it might work to deal with that and then move on to another one. So one of the, I want to pick up on the speed with which you're doing things. Oh my goodness, other parts of defence procurement must be looking at that. You're setting a very high bar there. But that was one of my questions, because we know the technology moves fast. You know, even lay people know that. And I just wanted to get a sense of how you've got to do things differently in order to accommodate that within the strictures of defence. And I have had some engagement with people who were taken out of their day-to-day work to do a 12-month program through one of the Queensland universities. Over many years I worked with them as they'd spent 12 months learning to be better procurers, as it were, as a higher education qualification. And so I appreciate the complexity of it, so I'm interested that you can do it so fast. Yeah. So what are you doing differently?
I'll just cover a couple of points on how ASCA does move quickly. I think firstly, relationships are really important. And so for ASCA, we rely very heavily on our capability managers and delivery managers in the department. And we get them into our conversations very early in terms of what are Defence's priorities, what do the capabilities managers need and want, what do the delivery managers need to actually acquire and sustain these capabilities. Now, we've found by having those conversations early, they're hard, don't get me wrong. Everyone has different views of what they need and when they need it, but that certainly paves the way in getting agreement by all the relevant parties as quickly in the process, allows us to then just get on with it. So that's one element of it. For the ASCA model, we reduce the number of decisions in our process, and you can appreciate in a bureaucracy like defence, the less decisions and decision makers involved really does speed things up for us. We have an internal oversight committee at a very senior level at Deputy Secretary and 3-star military officer level. They're our oversight, and I'll emphasise oversight committee. They're not there. As I said, VCDF, the Vice Chief of Defence Force, is our primary decision maker on what ASCA will go after. But that committee really is there to unblock issues that happen for us across the enterprise. So we have the Deputy Secretary of CASG, Chris Deeble, on that committee. He's in our conversations around the challenges we have in procurement, and he's there to relay those issues to his group and team to help iron out some of the wrinkles that we might have. We've got the Chief Finance Officer on that committee around budgeting. So that for us is enabling us to operate quickly, and we are engendering a culture in our organisation, in ASCA, to look at good enough is better than nothing. Is
that a change, Dr. Murphy?
Well, I think as humans, we all have a natural tendency to look for perfection and make sure everything is all 100%. But we take risks. We have to move quick. Good enough is what we need, not the perfect solution, because we may never get there. And so that runs right through our model in terms of the documents we produce, the right decision makers, not needing absolutely everyone, but just the right people And so there's the right type of people we need in ASCA to allow us to do that. It rolls off the tongue, it sounds fine, but it is a challenge.
It's not the way you used to do business. This is a speeded up model.
Correct.
With fewer people in it and an orientation to, well, we're seeing what's happening around in the world. We're seeing how fast decisions have to be made in Ukraine,
Correct.
for example, that we've got to get stuff and we've got to get it done. We've got to do it now.
Correct.
Which is change of culture.
Correct. It's a culture. There's elements I can go into about our contracting frameworks and that all helps, but it's a culture of taking risks.
Yep, because we have to do things quick. Ms. Templeman.
I think Dr. Robarts wants to add something.
I do, thank you very much. And I just want to build on a bit of what Dr. Murphy was describing there, plus bring it back to your points before or your questions around the different workforce types, the Australian Defence Force, the public service and the contractors. And what I'd like to refer to here is specifically within our Defence Digital Group. I'm not actually part of that group, but I can talk to this somewhat here. If we go back to the Defence Strategic Review, it identified that we'd shifted the workforce balance too far in one direction there. And this was...
In what way?
Yeah, I was just going to elaborate on that a little bit there, Chair. And this is something over sort of previous couple of decades. So it was over a long period of time, and many organisations did this. They outsourced a lot of their workforce. You'll have seen it in government organisations, you'll have seen it in financial industries and so on. And the balance of that workforce will swing one way or another. If we go back to the Defence Strategic Review, it said, actually, we had put too much of that workforce in our digital group, which is a delivery part of the organisation. We'd moved too much of that outside of our defence employment construct. We were buying those services from external, essentially.
Too many contractors, not enough people in-house. That's
the balance,
yeah.
Yes. And so part of what has been done now is bring more of that back into the public service rather than that being a contractor workforce. And then hand in hand with that is skilling the workforce so that we've got the skills to be able to move quickly, as Dr. Murphy was describing there. So I just wanted to sort of draw those two pieces together.
That's great context. Now I'm going to ask a broader question, and that is, given things are moving fast and the technology changes, how do you balance having enough stuff on the shelf so it's not sitting on the shelf too long before it becomes obsolete? And what are the consequences for us being able to manufacture locally, quickly, when we need it? Because this is an issue that's been raised by some of the submissions around the pace of manufacturing here or acquiring it from anywhere. So I just wanted to get a picture of, okay, how do you see all of that working?
Major General Pearce, so I'll make some comments and then others might care to add. So there's quite deliberate choices about what level of strategic reserve of equipment, material, fuel that we might need to hold, and that's linked to our strategic assessment of threat. And I guess from kind of previous experiences about now the isolation that we, from a geographic point of view that we have, what's available within Australian industry is increasingly important. We need to grow some of that capacity within industry. And so without setting particular targets, there is definitely a focus on what can we produce, manufacture domestically. Because at time of crisis or, worst event in conflict, our supply chains are going to be compromised or potentially threatened by adversaries. And if nothing else, also the fact that some of those items will be in high demand by other countries as well. So there is definitely a focus on what do we need to be able to acquire domestically. And from a government point of view, that they've chosen two areas in particular, so shipbuilding and guided weapons and explosive ordnance. And in both areas, It's quite a long and deliberate process to be able to build capacity from very simple manufacture through to high-end exquisite capabilities.
And those things are thought about at the contracting stage when the initial decisions are being made about who we're going to partner with to do it?
So those things are thought about from a strategy point of view. So we take government's direction, we break that down into what are the capability elements that we require to be able to achieve that, and what might be available from within industry is then kind of the result. So well short of someone going out to engage industry, we've thought about what's the golden thread of logic behind needing this particular capability, what's the time frame that matters for delivery, and what are the actual requirements that we have for it, so that we can be very precise and specific. And I guess to your point, ASCA is able to move quickly, be quite agile, because the requirements are very specific. Some of our other acquisitions, some of our other contracts are for very large, new technologies that don't exist yet, or that we're developing. You can't just go down to Costco and buy these things off the shelf. And so there is a different level of complexity, and that's actually part of our strategic assessment. We engage with government to be able to do what we call a complexity assessment. There's about a dozen criteria there, and depending on the level of complexity, also adjust the level of ministerial and indeed National Security Committee engagement that's required.
Okay, I'll let others pick up. Chair.
That's great. I'll go to Ms Jarrett for questions, and I note that Ms Clutterham, you have questions too. I'll come to you immediately after Ms Jarrett.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. I have a couple of questions that just build on some of the comments that have been made earlier. The first one in relation to capability, and we know that behind you said that there was a big focus on the digital side and technology, and that shift changing from contracting to coming in-house. But behind every autonomous piece or asset that we have is a human person of some description, whether or not they look after multiple or one. So how are we, what's our approach to building the human capability to support our autonomous delivery, I guess, and is there sort of set goals and new strategic new strategic goals that we're looking at in terms of balance, and what, who are these people, and do we have the skills and capabilities? Is there a big reliance on industry for this to support?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, it's a big question.
No, Major General Pearce, it's a great question. As we identify a requirement, we're not just thinking about a particular platform or system, a widget. We're thinking about how would we employ this as part of our integrated force? And therefore, we're thinking about everything from supply chain through to workforce and specialist skills. And so when this requirement is given to a project team, they actually build out a full profile, considering all those different elements. Where's it going to be operated? How is it going to be operated? How do we integrate it with our existing force? What are the skill sets that are required? And a pathway to either change, manage, and train existing staff, or do we need to kind of start a new skill set within our organisation? And I think part of the recipe for success here is not waiting, back to Dr Murphy's point, not waiting until we get it absolutely perfect, big bang in 10 years' time. It's how do we do this incrementally over time? And so what you'll see with our projects coming forward is they've got capability target states that enable us to start integrating bits of the capability as soon as possible, not waiting for the full thing to be delivered.
Mr. Jarrett, could I offer a specific example that might go to add to this? It's down a level, but within the space domain specifically, one of the tasks we have out of our Defence Strategic Review from 2023 was to design and deliver a dedicated and professional space workforce. So the work that's followed since then has culminated in September of this year with the creation of 2 new employment categories for Defence. One is a Space Operations Officer and one is a Space Operations Specialist. And those categories are enabled by training progressions, and those training progressions are built on an assessment, a well-informed assessment on what are the employment specifications, what are the things we will need these people to do, and how do we train them to do that, and on what time frame.
Sorry, what were the two? Space
Operations Officer and Space Operations Specialist. So, Chair, the broad split would be two categories of space specialists, one for our officer ranks and one for our enlisted, so the manager, planner, leader, and the hands-on-the-tools operator. They are the two categories we've created. And the training progression is new. We are trialling courses now. We will look to run courses as early as next year that will start to validate these progressions. And then as we build skill sets, looking to what a career progression pathway looks like for a space domain specialist, someone who has come from another service in the ADF, perhaps a different trade or background of specialisation. They've now transferred to a space specialised category. We'll build pathways now for, okay, how will you get opportunities to promote? How will we get opportunities for an uplift of your skill sets at the right times in your career? How will we maintain your connectivity and your context with your parent service, be that Army, Navy or Air Force? So that's work that's underway right now that I think responds in some way to the point of we've got new tasks, new technology, new mission sets. How do we make sure our workforce is contemporary, and we're doing that work early enough so that we don't have a gap in skill set down the track.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll go now to you, Ms Clutterham, for a question or two.
Thank you. Just the one question. I'm not able to be with you in the room today. I had intended to be, and things changed. I just did have a question about workforce, and I wondered what your view was about the use and capability of reservists. I sort of recall, in the last decade, there's ads on TV that say, 2 weeks a year, 1 weekend a month, and encouraging people to become reservists. Is that the right messaging? And is there a greater need and a greater sort of opportunity for that particular cohort? And if yes, how do we grow it?
Major General Pearce is leaning in.
Thanks very much. So as part of the National Defence Strategy released in 2024, there was some work done on what the future requirements of our reserve force might be. And to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been a plan released that addresses that yet. So our workforce plan addresses our full-time service requirements, but I believe it's yet to be updated for our reserve requirements. That's a body of work that we know we need to do. To your point about what level of service do we require, that's exactly right, but it's also people's availability and skill sets will be different as well. And so this, as much as anything, this is about identifying what skill sets does someone have and where might they be able to contribute, so we can match them with the right part of the organisation and be a little bit more flexible than what we have been in the past, which is if you want to join us, then you've got to go through all these hurdles along the way. What we're looking for is where there's existing expertise within the system, within the community, and where we could use it within the system very quickly. I just believe that workforce plan hasn't been released yet.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Go on, Ms Templeman. Yeah, I've got plenty. You have another go.
I'm sure between us we've got plenty.
More than going till 3 o'clock.
I just want to talk a bit more about the space side of things. And in the previous Defence Committee, we were able to visit Harold Holt. I mean, to be upfront, it's as old as I am. And I just wonder, in terms of investment, how much of our space capability requires investment in stuff on the ground as opposed to stuff in space? How does that work? What should we know about that?
Thank you, Major General Greg Novak, Commander Space Command. You've described two parts of the space domain, and thank you for doing that. It's a great chance to talk about one of my favourite topics. So there's the on-orbit part of space, which is what people are most familiar with. That's satellites, that's things in the sky, and that is the space segment, the on-orbit segment. The ground segment is what you've read, which is the terrestrial infrastructure, the dishes that speak to those spacecraft, the facilities that house the ICT and the people that then operate and send commands and monitor, the terrestrial infrastructure that supports the sensors that help us understand what is happening on orbit. And then joining those two is the link segment, which is it's the spectrum, it's the radio waves, the radar, the visible light that joins the two. The fourth segment is the user segment, which is all the terminal equipment, which allows people to use space services and access space services. The domain won't function without commensurate investment in all of those. When we put forward a proposal for a space capability, and similar to responses provided previously, it absolutely considers and costs what are the fundamental inputs to capability that we need to make this new space capability something that we can realise, something that we can assure and then sustain over time so that it's available for use when we need it. So things like base infrastructure, power, water, sewage, things like security and access control, things like the buildings to house and protect from the environment, all of those things are absolutely parts of the capabilities when we scope them for acquisition. My role as Commander Space Command, the term we use in defence is it's a force generation role. So I am a appointment that is responsible for training and preparing space capability so that it's ready for use. And the teammates you saw out at Joint Operations Command are an example of that. We've trained those people up, we've assured those systems. They're now assigned to Joint Operations Command to do the job that you saw them doing today. So as we move forward in a in-service capability description, part of my job is to make sure that the sustainment of those capabilities that are in service is also looked after. And again, that's if we have a shortfall in facilities, if we have a shortfall in power or ICT, then again, that's something that we need to invest funds, staff capacity and effort to address. So that's the approach we use. The North West Cape Defence Precinct does have it houses current in-service space capabilities. If you've been there, you would have seen them. Primarily, it's our terrestrial sensors, our land-based sensors that look skyward for us and help us understand what's going on. So that's an important site for us, and making sure that the site continues to be maintained and kept in an order where it can be assured. That's an important part of my mission with other stakeholders around defence.
And how extensive is the land-based bit then of the space strategy? I go back to that earlier comment, I guess. I hope it's answering the question. It's fundamental, it's foundational to on-orbit effects and space effects. I just mean more practically. So you've got stuff over there. What other stuff that we've got, to use a technical term, that we've got is really key, that you're able to share with us is really key?
So perhaps I'll offer in this forum at a level. So we really do have a global footprint for space capabilities for the ADF. A lot of that is collaborative with our international allies and partners. Some of it is collaborative with industry here in Australia. But if you looked collectively at operations and command and control nodes or facilities, like the one you saw this morning, they are important to us, and they are across Australia. Operational units that house and generate the equipment that we need to use and where our people go to work, again, they are a dispersed presence across Australia. The headquarter element that I sit in, that is part of Defence Headquarters. And also significant to call out the ICT connectivity and the associated protections and assurance that go with make sure all those different sites are connected. So it is, if I could offer a high-level summary, it's a global footprint shared with allies and partners. Here in Australia, it's a dispersed command and a dispersed set of capabilities that work together in unison across all four of those parts of the space domain I've provided before.
And how confident are you that the bit you're doing with the people and skilling them up, which no doubt has challenges, is right now supported by the infrastructure? So where... Yeah. I guess what I'm asking is, where's the greatest requirement for input right now? Is it in continuing to develop the people you've got? Is it making sure we've got the infrastructure right? Where does all that, where's the priority?
Yeah. So we have focused efforts on workforce design and delivery in the last 24, I guess, to 18 months. That's been, and that's the work that's generated those new categories for us. We've also looked to contemporise our space establishment. So as the command is established and the domain becomes better understood, and as we integrate more effectively with the rest of the domains and with Joint Operations Command, that's requiring some org change. So we're looking at that. I think in terms of facilities, the two must go together. There's no point generating a growing or increasing your workforce if you then can't gainfully employ them because they don't have ICT, they don't have somewhere to work, and they don't have a training progression or a throughput they could go through. Likewise, it doesn't make sense to invest heavily in infrastructure, facilities or ICT if there's no one on the horizon to be operating them anytime soon. So it really is a matter of, they are all important. They are all foundational and fundamental to domain success and assuring the availability of the capability, which is what my mission is. But it's a matter of making sure that we sequence that work to be done in a way that, deliberately planned, pragmatic, constantly checked and monitored and then adjusted where we need to. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I thought you might say they were all important.
They're all important. That's a wonderful summary.
I'm happy to hand back to you.
Can I just ask a couple
of that space stuff? You do some stuff.
I want to do some space, but there's a few more. Yeah, there's plenty to do. We've got a little bit of a response here, but I just wanted to ask, what are the challenges? You've mentioned a little bit of org change, right? Small sentence, big thing, right? Culture, practice, people's identity about where they thought they were going to go. All of a sudden, it all gets shaken up. I'm going to say to you, wonderful to see such incredibly accomplished people, but where are the women? There's so many bits that are in here. So, noting that complexity, this is a simple question with probably not an easy answer. What are the challenges that you're facing in transforming from that balanced force to an integrated, focused force? Major General Pearce.
Thanks, Chair. I guess more broadly, my experience is that our people are reasonably resilient and adaptive if they understand why a change is required. So we're used to doing things a particular way, and someone comes in with a good idea to do something different, it's like, why do I need to do something different? So the logic that came with the Defence Strategic Review and then 12 months later with the Defence Strategy provides that why. Our strategic circumstances have changed and we need some different capabilities, and we need to act with haste because our environment continues to deteriorate. So that's provided us with the why. The challenge, I would say, is actually different in each part of the organisation depending on how big, how fundamental the change is. Yeah. So somewhere like Major General Novak's organisation, which is relatively brand new, more significant change than part of the organisation who we're operating this particular platform, we now need to upgrade to a different platform. Similar skill set, but perhaps a bit of a tweak with technology. So difficult to give a uniform example of how's it being managed within Defence, other than it started with the why is what we're doing no longer fit for purpose, and that's provided the impetus for change that's being led by commanders across the force.
Have you had any? What does resistance present like? Because it would be impossible to undertake change without resistance in certain points.
I think you have to, and it goes, I think, a follow-on to General Pearce's sort of high-level response. There has to be a clear demonstration and communication of how it's making things better. There will be, at times, a default setting of I don't want to change because I'm comfortable and I'm used to doing things this way. articulating the need for change, demonstrating why it's going to make it better, and then continue to stay engaged. So it really is it's a leadership and a command function to manage that, and it's an important function. If you're not managing that aspect of your mission at the same, on a commensurate level as you are managing capability, preparedness and assurance, you're missing an important part of the equation. That's certainly the experience I have had in this command as we've raised and then adjusted in response to Defence Strategic Review and National Defence Strategy and changes in the environment. It's a communication engagement and a demonstration and follow-through of why the change is being made and how it will make things better.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Can I go now back to the balanced force position? And earlier in the evidence, we sort of clarified that now there's a much more connected, right? Which I think is what the integrated word means. This transformation and the progress that's being made in it is the focus of terms of reference for this committee's inquiry. Because it's obviously going to be a bit of a sticky point. There'll be some tensions there. Integration of the forces when you've got, some it's on the brake, some on the accelerator, some new skill sets, some transformation of processes. We did it slowly, carefully, perfection. Now we're doing get it ready, get it sorted and get it out there. Let's work with others in a context where everything's changing at a pace around you that it's extraordinary. It's not surprising that we're getting some feedback from primes and small and medium enterprises going, they're disoriented, like they're trying to figure out what on earth is going in and where they're going to fit into this. So integration is more than just the 5 domains working together. Can you perhaps flesh out for the committee what are the challenges to the fullness of integrations that need to occur? How's that being anticipated and what are you doing to get fulsome integration?
Sure. Thanks, Chair. Within Defence, the way we think about integration is actually at 3 levels. The first level is around how do we share data between our platforms and systems. That's most important in our surveillance, intelligence and targeting system. The second level is around our procedures. So conceptually, how would we fight and operate, and then the practical elements of how we would actually work together with other parts of the force. And the third element, as you've already hit on, is around our people and helping them to see themselves in this future and a pathway forward to that. Industry, I think, have a role to play in each of those elements. But I would also say the challenge for industry is very similar to any part of our workforce where I've been doing things a particular way and now the requirement might have changed and I'm perhaps not a priority or not going to be funded. What do I need to do? And that's where the classified briefings and then the industry engagements as we go forward to identify here's the requirement that we do have now and try to help industry partners to be able to identify what contribution they might make in that. And that might form some new relationships for primes and SMEs within that environment. It might mean that we identify a particular SME and try to pull them through with the ASCA team. And so really the challenge for us there is to continuously communicate, to continuously help our partners understand what our requirement actually is going forward, and quite often it's actually changed from what it was previously. And to a scale of that, when we did the National Defence Strategy, there was an impact to 80% of our integrated investment program. So only 20% of our planned investment stayed on the same pathway as what it was before the National Defence Strategy.
Very helpful evidence. So with a change of that scale, that helps me understand there's a degree of expectation about business as usual that is understandable particularly from industry, and they may well have geared up for thinking something's going to be going a particular way. But now the strategy has forced such a change that 20% of that is retained and 80% is new ways of doing business because of the geostrategic environment and our need to adjust to the real world, not the one we'd like to have planned for.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Okay, so I think that's quite helpful.
That figure is really useful.
Yeah, and also the 3 levels, the sharing of data, the procedural capacity and the people. So of those 3 levels of integration, where do you think you're having your greatest success and where are you most challenged?
Chair, my personal view is both the data and procedural piece is relatively straightforward, and we've so from a data point of view, we've adopted federated mission networking, which is a NATO standard that enables us.
Sorry, what you developed federated
mission networking. So it's a data standard, which is a NATO data standard that enables a sensor, which might be say a space sensor, to be able to identify something, bring it back to a management system to be able to interrogate, and then send it forward to Army, Navy or Air Force platforms to be able to fire on that particular target if that's what the decision is.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that enables us to. Quite often gone are the days where you pick up a radio or a handset and I've got a target at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a lot of data transfer, and so making sure that as we acquire new platforms and systems, they're able to link into that network is essential. It's not negotiable. That also enables us to then link in with our major alliance partner, the US.
At a standard that's fit for NATO.
Exactly right.
So we're not playing on our own anymore. This multilateralism that we talk about all of the time is multi-defence personnel, and that's the sort of stuff that you're practising when you go to Talisman Sabre.
Exactly.
And integrate with others. Okay, so there's an integration piece there that sits above this, but critically, you've got these 3 levels. Can I just go to data? I'm thinking about this as like a non-military person. There's been an upgrade in phones over a period of time. We're having a massive shift from one way of doing things with data, older ways that were perhaps more localised to a brand new iPhone, for example. Like, it's a big shift in technology that shares information with others. My question then is, there's vulnerability there's vulnerability in all sort of data sharing. So how confident can Australians be that the data shift that you're undertaking is safe, secure and impermeable?
I guess that depends on what type of data that you're talking about. We're talking a huge spectrum of data that we'll deal with within the Department of Defence, everything from data about our people and finances through the sorts of things that Major General Pearce was just talking about in warfighting scenarios. So the data will be on the network that it needs to be, so at the security classification that is appropriate. So a lot of the sorts of things that were just described here for the federated mission networking, that will be the movement of data on the secret networks. We also have top secret networks. We've got networks at a protected layer and then official as well. So it depends where the data resides.
So redundancies anticipated and built in, and you've got confidence in the technology you've got to have secure data at this point of time. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary. The networks apply a certain level of security that is relevant to the data that we're dealing with.
And the level of risk if it were to fail.
The level of risk. Yep. And then we apply other access and security controls within those networks so that only the right people are able to see the data as necessary there.
Great. Okay, so that's the first one dealt with. The next one is the integration of procedural capacity. How's that advancing?
Major General Pearce, so we have rewritten a number of our operating concepts to make sure that the services are now, so Army, Navy, Air Force, Space and Cyber, are now thinking about not just the effects that they can bring to bear, but how they can contribute to an overall effect. So I think about something like sea control, and you might go, oh, that sounds very Navy. Well, there's a space and cyber element to being able to provide assured communications for that sea control. There is an aerial surveillance and support piece that Air Force would provide, and depending on exactly where it is, it might be in a maritime choke point, it might be able to be influenced by ground sensors and indeed ground fires. And so starting to think beyond what we've traditionally done to see how every part of the force could contribute to that, and indeed where we may be able to integrate allies and partners as well. That's all been rewritten into our conceptual approach, and it's filtered down into our procedural doctrine, the way we do things. And so our ability to, and use the example of Talisman Sabre, so our ability to be able to work with those 17 nations isn't because we speak different versions of English. It's actually because we're able to share data with them. We're able to understand when I say secure or capture, that terminology has a specific meaning, and we're all agreed on that. So we've progressed a long way, I would say, with both data and with our procedural requirements. The challenge is the human in the loop. The challenge is our people, and that takes time. It takes a golden thread of logic from, you know, what's the requirement? Why do I need to do things differently? And then, exactly as Major General Novak explained, the element of demonstrating that this is more effective when we work together. So it's, I would say, honestly, it's perhaps uneven through parts of the organisation, but the pathway is clear and the requirement's clear.
Okay. That brings me back to a question then around workforce that follows on from Ms Clutterham's questions around reservists. You know, I'm going to use a shorthand, term, the hoop jumping, to get through certain processes before you can actually bring your skill set into a useful point. That manifests itself in conversations that I have with people who might want to serve the nation and would love to be part of defence, but they're not going to do the physical training and separate themselves from a current employment situation. There's barrier after barrier after barrier after barrier. What reconsideration, you talked about a report, to the pathway from reservists into effective participation in the challenges the nation faces? Sure. Are you confident that that's in hand? And what sort of workforce are we looking for, and in what numbers?
Thanks, Chair. So for our ADF regular forces, we're on a pathway to build, we're currently at about 62,500 personnel, on a pathway to build to 69,000 personnel.
And those personnel, for Australian people to understand, are not just people in uniforms full-time?
No, sorry, I'm talking specifically about full-time uniformed workforce. And so we've, through a number of initiatives around both recruiting and retention, stopped the workforce slide, and we're now growing by an average of, I think at the last Senate estimates, the Chief of Personnel testified to, I think it's about over 2,000 personnel per year. So on a growth pathway to actually meet the workforce requirements that we have going forward.
So what's the current number?
Current numbers in the order of 62,500.
And you're on your way to 69?
That's correct.
Okay. Reservists?
My understanding, and it might be a knowledge gap that I have, so I apologise, but my understanding is the reserve workforce analysis has been done, but that plan has not been issued yet, and therefore I don't have any data on it.
We'll leave that one there. If I can go to ASCA facilitating sovereign uncrewed aerial systems challenge, we've had a bit of a discussion about that. Given the maritime dimension of the shift, can I ask for a little bit of evidence about AUKUS Maritime Innovation Challenge and what's happening in terms of the integration of those two things?
Sorry, you're after some information on the AUKUS Maritime Challenge? Sure. So just for context, ASCA is leading the, on behalf of the Australian Department of Defence, annual innovation challenges in partnership with our UK counterpart, the Defence and Security Accelerator under the new UK Defence Innovation Agency, and in the US Defence Innovation Unit. We've now run, our first one was in 2024, which was an electronic warfare challenge. We're currently in contract with 2 companies, Penten Amio and Advanced Defence Technologies. They have $2.2 million contracts each, and they will be demonstrating those capabilities later this year. The second challenge, as you've pointed out, is the AUKUS Maritime Innovation Challenge, focused on providing capability with a focus on undersea communications, control of autonomous systems, again with the same UK and US counterparts. We're currently in contract negotiations. All 3 countries are in contract negotiations. We will have contracts awarded by December is the anticipated date. I can't give any more details, I'm sorry, because
we don't want you to say anything that compromises anything in any way. All we want to do is get enough out there so people know, or can I put it bluntly, what the hell's going on, and are we on track to be safe? You know, like that's it in a nutshell.
So I'll make a couple of points as well on the innovation challenges. We work very closely with the trilateral services. So
what does that mean?
So that means for the Maritime Challenge, we're working with the UK Royal Navy, the US Navy and the Australian Navy. Okay. So they are critical to identifying the problems or the challenge that they face, and it's for the innovation agencies like ASCA, DASA and USDIU to then run the process to go out to market to source the solutions for the trilateral navies. It's a shared challenge. So this is for the maritime, the capability gap for undersea communications and control is a capability gap that all our 3 navies are really struggling with. And so the point of these challenges is to look at our national systems to see what state-of-art technologies are out there that can solve those problems.
So that demonstrates one level of integration, which is what I'm going to frame as the international integration challenge. Then the other level of integration is within your forces. So how do other entities within Defence feed into, like you've got the Navy in that particular circumstance? What does space have to do with this? Does it come to integration with space at this point of time, or would you be called into that? Like how would such integration be heralded and achieved?
Yeah, thanks, Major General Novak, Chair. I think that last point of would you be called? Yes, as the opportunity, and the EW challenges, the electronic warfare challenge is an example. Not directly involved in it from a space perspective right now, but does electronic warfare and the use of radio energy or radio frequency energy have application to what we're doing in space and what we think we'll need in the future? Yes. So I think it's a matter of staying engaged with DSTG and with ASCA, Defence Science and Technology Group and the ASCA team, and making sure that where there is opportunity to leverage or where there is work being taken forward that we have stake in or has stake in us, that there is engagement there at the right levels of staff.
So If I can just sort of work through from this, you've got the point where the UK, US, and Australian navies are going, hey, we need something to be able to talk to each other underwater. What's going on? That's the innovation request. Then there is the research to figure out what could happen and what products do we need. Then there's something called pitch days. Is that part of this? Well, yes, now we figured out we need these things, we put a pitch to market, or is that something on a separate track?
That's something separate. So the pitch days that are run through ASCA are really meeting that request from industry, and we've been listening to them. They say, well, how do you know what we've got? Can we come and show you?
Oh, so they're pitching to you on the days?
Correct. So,
that's helpful.
So we identify...
Okay.
We try and corral it. We don't necessarily want everything, clearly. So we go through a process of identifying some themes that align to defence priorities, and then we go out to the market and say, hey, does anyone have technologies under these themes? We go through a process of selecting ones that fit the bill, essentially, and then give them 3 minutes to get in front of people like this to showcase what they've got on offer.
Okay, that's helpful. So let's go back to, you've got this innovation, and ASCA then is charged with the responsibility to get solutions. In the case of the electronic warfare, you were able to identify a couple of entities that are now producing the product that was requested. How did you find or how are you finding in the middle of the process the response to the AUKUS Maritime Innovation Channel? How do you find the people to respond to that?
So
because you can't put out an ad and say, we need this secret squirrel stuff,
This is public. It's not classified. So we put it through AusTender. So that's the mechanism by which government approaches the market, essentially. So we put out a solicitation under AusTender. We will also follow up with a market briefing. And by that I mean we invite anyone who has seen the AusTender notice to come along to a virtual briefing where we have capability manager. It might be, in the case of the Maritime Challenge, we had a Australian Navy representative, ASCA representative to talk through the process, and allowed industry to ask questions in that briefing session to get a bit more of an understanding of what the threat is, what's the particular requirements of the capability, and they then go away and choose to put a proposal through to us.
That's very helpful. Now, can I just ask back there, when these people decide to come forward, what sort of vetting processes go on to make sure we haven't got, spies and bad people who are coming into these briefings of things that are of national importance for us?
I guess we have, they're not classified briefings, but we do vet them for them being Australian entities, so they have to declare what company they represent, and so we'll go through a process to evaluate that they are from that company.
Yeah, they need to register for the pitch days and briefings.
Okay, so you feel like you've got that in hand, obviously. Yeah, okay.
Chair, just before you move on from that topic, I just noticed you've got pitch day on Monday.
Correct.
In Sydney.
In Sydney.
And so,
it's a virtual offering, so...
And people can register to listen to the pitch. It's not all done.
It's not all the... there's clearly a face-to-face event, but we are also live streaming it.
Yes.
Thank you for that plug.
No, I just saw it, and it says individuals must register to attend, which made me go, what? So people can just, register and then hear some of the great... it looks like it's a mix of organisations, academics, CSIROs there, so I can see what it is. So anyone who happens to be listening to this hearing is probably doing so because they're very interested in this stuff. So just Google pitch day, which is how I found it.
Can I also do one plug too while we're at it? If you go to the ASCA,
off you go.
ASCA website, asca.gov.au, we have also just released 2 videos, one promoting ASCA, what we do, but we've just spoken about the AUKUS Electronic Warfare Innovation Challenge. We've got a video that talks people through what we've gone out for, what are the companies that are partnering with us, and it gives a lot of information to the public about what the challenges are about. So highly recommend that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd flag
Shamelessly plug the Australian Defence Force.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Back a good horse. Ms Clutterham, if you just want to text me if you've got any questions, but I'm going to give the call now to Ms Jarrett. Just a quick one in terms of the private sector and industry support. And you talked about the vetting processes, but can individual companies provide to us as well as to other countries? Or are there levels where that's allowable versus levels where that's not allowable? So they could provide services to us or products to us, and they could similarly provide it to somebody else.
Thanks, Major General Pearce. It's not my area of expertise, but my understanding is that companies are able to pitch to other nations. Each nation will have its own set of requirements, perhaps from a security point of view. But as we engage and are in contract with those companies, we require visibility of who they're working with as third parties.
That is part of the requirement. Okay. Can I move on to international cooperation, just for something a little bit different, and understanding obviously that deterrence is the priority for the defence. Are there opportunities for Australia to enhance our international cooperation, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, but also are there opportunities where we can learn from other nations, their experiences, et cetera, that can help address some of the strategic priorities?
We work very closely with a wide range of partners, mostly in the Indo-Pacific, in order to achieve collective deterrence. So part of that is enhancing our ability to train and exercise together and develop interoperability that is able, I think, to send a deterrence message in terms of the ability of Australia and its partners to be able to respond to contingencies together. If we've done the exercising and training, then a country that might seek to disrupt the status quo or present a threat to international security would have to be mindful that partner countries have trained and exercised together and would be better placed to respond. We train, exercise and engage with our partners across all domains. And so in the course of that engagement, I think we are constantly learning from, in some cases, transmitting our processes and knowledge to other partners so that really all of the partners are able to operate at a higher level. There are particular cases too where we recognise an opportunity for Australia and for the ADF to learn from the experience of others, and 2 examples I would give would actually be outside the Indo-Pacific. One is the war in Ukraine obviously has seen very significant developments, particularly in relation to autonomous technologies, and so we have been studying the developments on the battlefield in Ukraine and engaging with the Ukrainian armed forces to try and get a sense of the application of some of those developments to how the Australian Defence Force would operate. I think another area where we would look to learn from others is countries' whole of society resilience and preparedness, and certainly countries like Finland have I think, long been identified as having taken approaches that offer lessons to other countries in terms of their resilience and preparedness and ability, if necessary, to mobilise their whole of society.
Thank you. Thank you. Could I just ask you to give a sense of recent changes with regard to the Chagos Islands? You know, we've talked about the Pacific, the Indo-Pacific region, and the theatre of the space that really is a priority for the Australian Defence Force to work with others and take a significant leadership role in. You know, we're a continent that's surrounded by two oceans with very different challenges, different orientations and different needs. So could I ask you to speak to the international alliance and international demands for the Australian Defence Force to take a role, perhaps an increasing role, in the Indian Ocean?
Chair, the Indian Ocean is obviously an integral part of Australia's geography, and one that we seek to apply the same strategy of denial to as we do to the rest of Australian territory. So that involves developing the capabilities that would enable us to deter any efforts to present a threat to Australians' interests, and if necessary to hold at risk through our capabilities the efforts of others to attack our territory. I think over recent decades we have steadily increased our outlook and our engagement in the Indo-Pacific. I mean, part of that has been having our fleet base west, based on the Indian Ocean at HMAS Stirling. We have been very active in the architecture within the region. I think it's fair to say that it's less developed architecture in the Indian Ocean than it is in East Asia or in Europe, but we have certainly been very active leaders within the within IORA and other Indian Ocean mechanisms. Under the Defence Strategic Review and then endorsed by the National Defence Strategy, we have brought the Indian Ocean, and particularly the Northeast Indian Ocean, into what we call our primary area of military interest, running through the Northeast Indian Ocean, through maritime Southeast Asia into the Pacific. And so that has given us direction to enhance our relationships in the Indian Ocean region. I mean, in particular, I would highlight our deepening defence relationship with India.
Yeah.
And that is very much focused around our shared maritime environment, looking to develop greater interoperability when we exercise between the Royal Australian Navy and the Indian Navy, our ability to share information with each other on the maritime domain and on emerging threats. We have also taken steps to increase our engagement with some of the smaller island countries in the Northeast Indian Ocean, particularly Maldives and Sri Lanka, and the government has announced that in June that we would be providing the Maldives with the Guardian-class patrol vessel, and we are certainly focused on supporting these nations in the Northeast Indian Ocean to protect their sovereignty and uphold their interests.
Thank you. In what you've just described there, and please feel free to add in the Pacific context as well, what would be some examples of how Australia supports our international partners from our bases as a part of the integration that happens? And also then the sort of practical level of resupply and sustainment. How plugged into those channels are we? How reliant are we on them? And what does this mean for our sovereign capability as part of a partnership, not just sovereign capability for ourselves? And then that's probably going to lead me on to an AUKUS question.
Well, look, in terms of sustainment, we certainly have regular interactions with and cooperation with partners when it comes to the sustainment of ADF platforms. I mean, there's an example underway at the moment with the submarine maintenance period at HMAS Stirling in terms of Australia demonstrating our ability to sustain US SSNs when they visit Australia. When our ships and aircraft and ground forces are deployed in the region, they will undertake sustainment activities at different locations such as Singapore. That's beneficial in terms of our ability to operate in the region. If our ship, for example, is able to do a maintenance period in Singapore or Japan, then it will be able to return to a regional to presence deployment more rapidly than it have had to come back to Australia.
So sustainment is a very big word to capture a lot. You know, you've spoken there about repairs and maintenance of critical ships and proximity to points of potential interaction, you know, like hotspots like the South China Sea, for example. But sustainment means a lot more than that. You referred to Australian platforms. What does Australia uniquely bring to these international relations that we have?
Well, we bring, I think, a very strong logistics and sustainment enterprise within defence in terms of our ability to sustain and provide repairs and maintenance, whether immediate repairs or longer, deeper repairs.
And those longer, deeper repairs, is that the part that plugs into our industrial base here?
Yes, yes. So, I mean, it varies from, a very extended sustainment and life of type extension period that a naval platform might have to Australian industry providing sustainment for a smaller and less complex task. So what we bring is the ability to sustain the Australian Defence Force, and that is of benefit it can be of benefit to our allies and partners. So, for example, if the United States might, through its rotational presence in Australia of air and maritime platforms, might require some sustainment activity, then we would be able to potentially provide that during their rotational presence in Australia, and sometimes that would involve Australian defence industry. We also seek to negotiate logistics arrangements and MOUs with other countries so that we have the foundations through which we can do mutual sustainment activities for our partners.
Okay, thank you. With more sort of land-based orientation, what are we doing in terms of partnerships in the region? We've mentioned India, you talked about maritime support for the Maldives and Sri Lanka. What about India, Japan, the Republic of Korea, you know, moving down into Malaysia, Indonesia? We've got this wonderful new treaty with PNG. What's happening in the new geostrategic environment in terms of on the ground and then perhaps a space dimension of integration with those partners in defence of the rule of law?
Well, I think, Chair, really across all the countries you've mentioned, we're seeking to increase our ability to operate with ground forces across those countries. In the case of Malaysia, for example, the rifle company Butterworth has for decades deployed from Royal Malaysian Air Force Base Butterworth in Malaysia to undertake training and exercise activity with other partners across Southeast Asia. In the case of the Republic of Korea, we've very much welcomed their participation over the last two iterations in Exercise Talisman Sabre, where they've deployed ground forces to Australia and undertaken involvement in complex exercise activities alongside Australia. and other partners in the Pacific. We're looking to deepen our interoperability with PNG and a number of other partners at a bilateral level, but also multilaterally through the Pacific Response Group, which has been established. It's been able to deploy across different locations, including to Vanuatu following the earthquake in December 2024. So, I mean, our entire, I think, defence policy is premised on working with partners as the default position, for the obvious reason that it allows us to have greater influence collectively than it does operating on our own, and that's certainly a core objective of our Defence International engagement going forward. I could mention other partners such as New Zealand, obviously, with whom we have very deep connections and levels of integration. We're looking to increasingly integrate with the Fijian military forces. So really, across that spectrum within our primary area of military interest, our strategy is based on the ADF being able to operate with others.
Thank you. Major General Pearce.
Chair, if I just offer a couple of personal observations to support what Mr Phillip has said. So our engagement across the region, I believe, is extensive because, and it's historic as well. So for the past couple of decades, led primarily by our education and training system. And that's because we can only really move at the pace of trust. And so just turning up and saying, hey, I'm an Australian and I want to do this with you, only gets you so far. There's a lot of countries reaching out wanting to work together, and so it does come back to shared interests and aligned strategy, but also personal relationships as well. And so we have all the countries that you've mentioned, we have them represented at our Defence College as students, as middle managers and also senior leaders, who then go back to their parent country with, I guess, an increased understanding of the Australian perspective on the region. And while they're here, to Ms Jarrett's point, while they're here, we, of course, learn their perspective and help balance our own biases and perceptions as well. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. That continues as well within the training system of each of our services. They've got a slightly different focus, but particularly from an Army point of view. I was the commander in Darwin in 2017, 18, 19. We had an Indonesian senior officer come across quite anxious about what the United States Marines were doing in Darwin and what their focus might be. He saw the training that we were doing together and said, could we engage, could we join in that as well? And of course the answer was yes. And as a result of that, we ended up having our Chief of Defence Force at the time bring his counterpart across, build trust, and now we have deeply integrated training activities with the Indonesians in a way that's not just you train there and we'll train here and we'll pretend that we're working together. It's you take 10 of my people, I'll take 10 of yours, and let's go and do this task together. So the level of training and integration has matured over the past few years and has continued to deepen to the point now that we do more than 1,000 training activities with regional countries on an annual basis. Now, there's no quite such thing as a standard activity. One of those training events might be a small handful of people, maybe a dozen people, and another one might be several hundred people. That's a training activity, but the numbers are numerous, and it's in order to build up, in the first place, trust, and then competency and understanding of where each other's capacities are and shared interests are, where we can work together.
Great.
Chair, could I really just quickly ask a question about that?
I think there's two questions on that, and then I want to come back to space. So, Ms Jarrett first, and then you, Ms Templeman. Templeman first. Sorry, then Jarrett.
Thank you. When you talk about the student program, do you mean our international program when they're coming and going to uni or?
Sorry, this is purely defence.
Yeah,
so
okay, that's just what I want to clarify.
Our Defence College at Western Creek, and so we have, and indeed some students at the Defence Force Academy at ADFA, and also embedded within single serve like Army, Navy, Air Force training system as well. But we have students from the region and internationally come to Western Creek, and we send some of our students internationally as well, typically about 10% of our cohort.
So this is Defence Force to Defence Force students?
Exactly. Yes, Chair.
Yeah, okay, great.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Very good point. Ms Jarrett.
Mine's a very quick clarification on the Pacific Response Group. What is their, so obviously that's part of the cooperation, etc., but what's their primary focus? And are they based out of Gallipoli in Brisbane?
Yes, they are.
They are, okay.
So the purpose really is to provide a multinational grouping that's able to respond to Pacific security issues as they arise, consistent with our national priority of there being Pacific-led solutions to issues in the Pacific. Since its establishment in October 2024, it has undertaken joint training between the 6 participating countries, deployed, as I mentioned, to Vanuatu following the earthquake in December 2024, and has also participated in regional exercises. At the most recent South Pacific Defence Ministers meeting in Chile earlier this month, ministers from the 6 countries agreed to take forward a range of initiatives to strengthen the Pacific Response Force and build greater integration.
Can you just remind me who the 6 countries are?
You'll catch me out there, I think, Ms Jarrett, but I think Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Tonga, France, and I may have missed one, but okay. I can certainly take that on notice.
No worries, thank you.
And New Zealand, of course.
I'm mindful of the time. We've just pushed past 3, but if we could close off with a comment on space, because you know there are boundaries drawn on the maps for the Earth, but that there don't seem to be any boundaries at all above the Earth. So could you give us a sense about that integration? Thank you.
Chair, thank you. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak about space partnerships. It's again, another foundational part of what we do. There is a line that's often used by space leaders across our defence community, which is space. It's the epitome of the team sport. You won't get after or achieve all of your aspirations if you try and do it on. It's too big, it's too expensive, and there are physical limitations to what you can get from your part of the world. So I think for partnerships, Australia offers a lot to our international partnerships in space, and it's often referenced that's primarily geography, and that is very true. We have a nice position in the southern hemisphere for doing things and watching things in space that not everybody else shares. It's a large landmass. There are lots of areas where we have little light pollution, little radio frequency pollution, which are all important for some of the mission sets that we do. So geography absolutely is a key strength for us in our partnering. But I think it's equally important to highlight that's not all we have, and I think most fundamentally we bring with it a commonality of systems with our major partners, a commonality of training, commonality of security clearances and vetting, which gives us a degree of trust, and a long history of combined operations that are not just in the space domain, but that is carried through into the space domain. So we are well positioned to be key contributors to working together with our like-minded partners, and that's a really important thing for maintaining our standing and status as a partner who contributes, rather than one that just continues to draw off or is reliant upon. The primary international partnering forum for the ADF in the space domain is the CSPO forum, which is the Combined Space Operations Initiative. And that's in its 11th year now. It's been running since 2014, and Australia was one of the founding members. It's 10 nations, and those countries are the traditional Five Eyes partners, so Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US and UK. Then on top of that we have France and Germany, and then Italy and Norway. France, that's the 10. So from that forum, we find ourselves with a good regional partnering environment with us, Japan and New Zealand. We find we have our traditional Five Eyes, our closest partners for information sharing and intelligence sharing in that Five Eyes community, but we also have European partners with plugs into NATO and another important part of global strategic security considerations. Separate to CSPO, but also with like-minded partners, many of whom are CSPO members, we have Operation Olympic Defender. which is a US-led combined operations arrangement. You were at Joint Operations Command this morning. Group Captain Crooks briefed you on our standing operation for space nationally, which is OPDARA. OPDARA nests into Operation Olympic Defender and sees us doing combined operations with those 7 partners, which is the Five Eyes again, plus France and Germany. And if we look at all of those engagements collectively, of course they are supported by a series of bilateral arrangements or activities where we engage on particular mission sets or particular outcomes and objectives with selected partners. But through that we are able to set strategic or shape and influence strategic settings and situations that allow for the encouragement of responsible behaviours in space and inculcating a priority on stability and security, discouraging reckless, irresponsible or aggressive behaviours in space that might lead to escalation. And at the end of the day, all of that comes to a vision of assured access for everybody's benefit to the space domain. So that's the CSPO piece. That operational part under Olympic Defender, that's really about optimising our capabilities. It's about synchronising what we are doing in space operations to make sure that our efforts are always supporting, never cross-purpose, and that we are drawing collective strength rather than what we can achieve individually. And my last point I would offer that through that forum of strategic engagement through CSPO, bilateral engagement on priority areas where we need to, and operational cooperation through Olympic Defender, we actually cover collective training. So those events like your Talisman Sabres where we have large formations and organisations working together. That's a collective training event. We also do a lot of individual training where we might take UK or New Zealand people onto our courses at the same time we're sending our people to go and do courses in Germany or in the US. That's building that human interoperability piece and procedure interoperability piece that General Pearce spoke about before, specific to the space domain. It also allows us to make sure that when we start looking at our future force requirements and how we might get after modernisation and capability uplift, we're doing it in a way where wherever our national interests align, and that's an important caveat, wherever our interests align, we can be allied by design with the systems and the procurement objectives and aspirations that we're putting forward, so that we don't find ourselves where as an allied or partner cooperative we've overweighted our efforts into one area at the expense of another. We've actually got good contributions across all different mission sets contributed to in a planned and designed way by the Allies. So the caveat being there will always be Australian national interest, government direction that drives our priorities, but where those interests align, making sure that we're working with our partners to do that capability development and uplift in an aligned way.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to find my page with the magic words to close this hearing, but can I just say that as the new chair of the Defence Subcommittee of the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade Committee, I'm delighted to have been joined by great colleagues who I think would agree with me that this has been a good investment of a lot of time, hopefully for you as much as it has been for us. We appreciated the briefing and the opportunity to meet you at Headquarters, Jock. But our job as parliamentarians and representatives of the Australian people is to get as much as we can that you can disclose on the public record without any threat to national security, because this protection of our nation is a joint endeavour of all of us together. You have a particularly important role as representatives of the Defence Force, and we really appreciate your service and the long-standing respect for our services across the nation. But it's everyone together that's going to be the defence of the nation and the goodwill of the Australian people towards the projects that are being undertaken. I think it goes back to, I think you called it the golden thread of logic. Answer the question, why? Why are we investing this much money that could be doing other things? Why are we investing so significantly in defence at this point of time? What are the benefits to the Australian people apart from protection of our nation, but long-term benefits for development, opportunity, innovation, changes to our manufacturing capacity, sovereign stability, plus, pride pride in doing a really, really great job with partners who defend the international order and the rule of law. So I think we've commenced well today with having you come to give us evidence, and I would encourage you as leaders in the force to speak to your colleagues around the country to help perhaps a new practice establish, that this committee is one very important way for us together to put on the public record in a responsible way what is happening and to continue to develop that goodwill and understanding of our joint purpose. So with those words, can I thank you very much for being here today. If there are any further questions, we might send you what we call questions on notice, and there may be requests for additional information. If possible, could you respond by the 14th of November? You'll also be sent a copy of the transcript of your evidence, and you'll have an opportunity to request corrections to any transcription errors. Thank you to the committee members, thank you to the witnesses for being here, thank you to Broadcasting and Hansard for the work you do in maintaining proper order in our wonderful democracy. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.